Milford. You know what I will say is I got yesterday, my son was here. Both my sons were at home this weekend. And it's kind of a weird thing to say when your oldest goes to college and then they come home. But it was opening deer season. So the youngest son has a deer tag. So we want to go, hunting on the ranch for a deer. And then the oldest son was home for a wedding. And we went and worked out yesterday in my little gym I have there on the ranch. And then, and he just beat me up. I mean, like beat me up hard. Like he's not quite as strong as me yet, Reagan. He's getting there. But and then we get done, and then the other son's like, Dad, I shot a deer. I'm coming down. You got to help me gut him. I don't know what I'm doing. So I spent the next
That's
2 hours
hilarious.
after getting my arse handed to me in the gym by my oldest son. My youngest son, I had to come down and help him gut it, skin it, hang it, all the things. So my hands everything are super tired this morning. And then I got on my Peloton and I really beat myself up, because that's me fighting against the bulge, as they say as you get older. But you two wouldn't know anything about that. So you guys are too young to know about any of that stuff.
Yeah, we're catching up.
Hey, did you guys? So I got to start with this. Have you guys seen the little Adam Carolla clip about AOC and wanted to close ICE? And he said, I think it's just the name is too negative. The Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. If you put national in front of it, then who's going to be opposed to nice? We're gonna gotta get rid of all these nice agents. The nice agents are just everywhere, And Trump's trying to deploy nice, and Tina Kotek wants to stop. He didn't use our legislators' names, but Tina Kotek and all the Democrats in Oregon, and Democrats in California, Democrats in Washington, they don't like nice. They don't want to deal with nice. They don't want nice around. But anyway, that is how I thought I would start this discussion about, because I think it's definitely, I'm noticing the Democrats, they're all posting their direct to social videos and various leaders. They're all updating us like it is the most important thing. Like we're in the middle of a crisis. And to be fair, Trump is also saying this is a crisis. So both sides are treating this as a crisis, which I think is hilarious, despite the fact that the folks in Portland say, well, it's safe. Look at all these pictures of the Pearl District. Look at all these pictures of the parks. It's so great out there. Portland is totally 100% safe. And we're in this position where Democrats are saying things like, look at the statistics about how safe it is. And regular people in Portland are like, well, they must think that those statistics are lies because they don't feel safe. And this is where, you get that kind of disconnect there, right? And so we have on the program here, we haven't even introduced him, Alex McHaddad of many hats. What all hats do you wear? Former ORP treasurer, Young Republicans
Yeah.
of Oregon. You have many hats. Tell us about your many hats, first of all.
Yeah. So my main day job is I am the city administrator of Elgin, Oregon.
Yep.
Before people wonder why a city manager is on a talk show like this, Elgin's the only city in Oregon with an elected city manager. So I'm as much a politician as the mayor or a congressman.
Wow.
Yeah. So nobody ran for it last time, which is how I got it. I was appointed to fill the vacancy and
Yeah.
be on the ballot next fall. Yeah, it's great. And in
Wow.
2022, there was a charter change on the ballot to make this appointed rather than elected. The citizens rejected that and then proceeded to not elect anybody. So,
Because that's a lack of accountability right there. We just appoint everybody, and then it's just like you're just a regular bureaucrat now. You're not accountable to the people.
well, the problem with it being appointed is that, or with it being elected, is that the only reason you could technically remove the city manager from office is adjudicated mental incompetence or conviction of a felony. So he could shoot somebody in City Hall on camera, and he would still be city manager
Oh,
until
wow.
that court case went through.
Hmm.
So that's kind
I
of a
mean,
problem.
that's a downside because
Yeah,
you don't have a backup. Maybe there's nobody that can really fill in.
exactly. Yeah,
They
they're,
elect
they're
a lot of mayors are elected or like a city administrators, right? They're elected in Eastern Coast states. It's just not a West Coast thing. We just don't tend to have it over here. But if you go to, like a friend of mine I met at the Trump inaugural. He's now a friend, because we're all Trump friends there. But he's from Kentucky. He's like, "Oh, I'm the mayor of some town in Kentucky. I don't know." He ran for a governor's race. I think he finished fifth out of six people. But I met him there, and I go, "Oh, mayor, like, what do you do then for work?" And he goes, "No, no, that's like my job. Like, I'm the administrator. Like, the mayor's like the administrator." And he says most of those Kentucky, Tennessee kind of areas are all kind of that way. They're elected by the people. So I was like, "Oh, that's not a bad gig." Especially when nobody runs against you. That's awesome. Best
Exactly.
election ever.
Yeah, I think the split for city manager versus mayor system is like 55 city manager, 45 the mayor runs everything
Mm.
nationwide. In Oregon, the only like mayor that, well, I think there's technically two cities that have a city charter that say the mayor is the chief executive official, and that is the city of Portland, and that the city of Union is the other one. But the Union mayor doesn't actually do anything. They've had a city manager doing it full
Hmm.
time for a while. So it's really just Portland that is the mayor. So having somebody be elected to run the day-to-day affairs of the city is a bit of an anomaly here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of your other hats too is journalism. So you run a website, Right Now Oregon,
Yeah.
and that's how we get to this conversation about the National Guard to dovetail back into what we kind of opened about. So you decided you were going to make the trek from Elgin to the Portland Nice facility. And what did you find? What did you see? Was it safe? I've seen a lot of videos of people saying, "Look at here we are in broad daylight in the morning when all the protesters are not out, likely sleeping in their parents' basements at home, until it gets dark, and then they kind of this more of a nightlife thing, right?" So that's part of this argument that I find a little bit not uh, not a fair adjudication of things. They're not there when it's the darkest, when it's the most active. They're here we are in the middle of the day, and it's fine.
Yeah. Oh, I'm laughing at that. I'm laughing at unfortunately, the Portland Police Chief's news conference with KATU yesterday. He was saying basically the same things. OPB is posting, here's a picture of ice. It's fine. Oh boy, just step 50 feet to the east of it, right across the train tracks, and you get a completely different picture. Yes, with Right Now Oregon, um, the goal for me that day was to go and check it out. Like, is it really that bad? Is it really like what a lot of people on the right are saying, or is it really fine, like the government seems to be saying?
Hmm.
I took Tina Kotek and Mayor Keith Wilson's word for it. Like, no, we have enough resources to take care of it, and I think they do. As that court case this weekend said, there's enough officers, they've got enough mutual aid agreements. It's like, well, let's go see for myself. Do we really need the National Guard here? And at first I was like, I don't think so. Their people are just kind of mingling, but it's not really getting bad. But not long after I got there, there was a moment where an ambulance tried to leave the ICE facility, sirens and everything. And a scrum of 50 ICE agents had to push the crowd away just so the ambulance could rush to the hospital. Like, that's a bit of a problem. That shouldn't even be an issue for an ambulance to get out. But the people there are so mad about ICE, they weren't letting an ambulance go. So all these guys in Riot Gear and everything else had to just push him out to let the ambulance go. It took a few minutes for him to actually be able to get out. Depending on how serious as that was, a few minutes could be the matter of life and death for somebody. And that was pretty trashy to see that the way they were handling it, the mayor and the governor didn't want to use the appropriate local resources to at least let an ambulance get to the hospital. Guys, you could be doing this, but you're not doing it. Over the night, things got a lot crazier. Where I was there from about a little after 7 to a little after 9. Felt like an eternity with all the fun stuff. But
It's a long time to be in Portland, so I
yeah,
understand.
get me back to God's country. The One of the big things that happened about halfway through, there was people had been filling the streets up, preventing traffic. There were people that were antagonizing each other, not quite openly making physical contact in fights, but definitely trying to entice other people to slap them. And after a while, police bullhorn comes up and says, "Hey, you're not allowed to do that. Everybody get back on the street." But people kept filling up the streets, getting in the way of commuters and anybody else who's just trying to live. I mean, there were a lot of people. There were cars going through that intersection constantly that were being blocked off by people in the street, trying to start fights and making noise. And at one point, there were a couple people who did get in a little bit more of a spat, and they called the police. The cavalry came in. I've got about a 4 minute long live stream video you can look at right now, Oregon's Facebook and YouTube to see. They sent in like 50 cops at once. So I think there was 25 guys in riot gear that popped up on a van, and 25 bike cops that just showed up and made a bunch of targeted arrests, and then they were left. They gone like that.
And do you think did those look like Portland to you, or did they look like ICE, or did they look like National Guard? Like who do you think that group was?
They were very clearly identified as Portland police.
Okay.
And there was a press release issued by the Bureau later that evening that verified it was one of their operations.
So their strategy here is not controlling the crowd, not allowing traffic to flow, but at various times doing like a little bit of a sting on if it gets really, really bad. And I think, to me, Brian, I don't know what you think about this, but to me, that looks like political policing, basically, where in order to maintain order in that area, they'd have to really crack down. They'd have to put a lot of resources there, and they'd have to be there a long time. And it looks like what they do is they don't want to do that because they believe that people are just going to continue to protest and expand the protest. That's cool if you don't want like law and order in your city. Sounds good to me. However, I think they realize you look at Portland, half of their city council is Democratic Socialists of America. So these guys are not really big on law and order unless the law and order is like generally a socialist dictatorship, right? And we don't have that yet. So that's what they're trying to bring about. So they know that if they actually do like traditional capitalist country law enforcement, they're going to get protested even more. It's going to be even more difficult. And so they're just choosing not to do that. And it has consequences like Alex was talking about. I mean, what are you seeing here in terms of, what we're hearing about this and what you're seeing online?
It's clearly the political class doesn't want the agitators to show up, right? And they want it to not because they don't really, except for I think AG Rayfield actually wants to fight with Trump because he loves to sue him. So it just kind of leads into his whole political narrative, right? So I don't think the other ones, I don't think Mayor Wilson wants it. I don't think the governor really wants it. So I think there was a goal to like basically not have that happen. And so I would think that the police then, with that idea that they're trying to basically, because they feel like if they show up, they have this mentality that if the police are there, they're the agitators, not the people protesting with guillotines and other things out in front of the ICE facility. Like somehow the police, if they show up, they're agitating the situation. But the reality is the protesters that are bringing stuff like that are the ones. I mean, you looked at the trash that's around that facility, the amount of junk but it's only one city block, and the city is 74 square miles or something. It's truly, but if they showed up with strong arms, National Guard, they're just gone. And then I think that they just know that they're not in control, really. These professional agitators, these DSA guys, these crazies, they're actually in control through these council members, through these other politicians that want to just hate Trump, and they'll do anything. I mean, Trump could come out with a cure for cancer and Democrats would probably sue him. I mean, right? So it's really just an anti-Trump thing. It has nothing to do, because the reality is, Reagan, they're so pissed about, this is my thinking with the left, especially the Portland left, and you can throw Chicago into this too, because they were crazy. What's going on over there? I don't think that's nearly getting the attention that it seems like Portland seems, of course, we only hear what's going on in Portland. The left wants all of the federal money that Trump has been stripping away. They want that, but they don't want our troop support to clean up the trash and to clean up the violence and the stuff in town. So they want to pick and choose what they get from the federal government, and you don't get that. Like you don't get to choose, well, we want all the money to pay for illegals Medicaid, but we don't want ICE troops here to get rid of illegals. It's like, well, but that's not, you don't get it both ways. And they want it both ways.
when Democrats were in the federal government, Republicans didn't get to say, well, we want the support of all of the, green energy projects. We don't want any mandates. We don't want any regulations. We don't want, no, it all came together, actually. It always goes together.
Yeah. I don't know. What is that what you hear? There was a few other people, I think like David Medina's been down there a lot. I did like when I don't know if he was leading the chant on the USA chant out in front. I thought that was kind of good.
No, that was one of the guys who got arrested.
Oh, that was
Yeah. Yeah, he and another guy. He was constantly going out to people and trying to agitate. So
Medina
I'm
was.
surprised he got arrested. No, not Medina.
Oh,
So the person who was chanting USA, USA on Friday night,
yeah.
one of the two people who got arrested.
What did they got arrested for? Did they
Trying to
press
remember.
release
I think it was disorderly conduct.
for chanting USA?
Well, it was for the belligerents and the constantly going in the street and ignoring lawful orders to disperse. Let me see if I can find
But
his
isn't that
arrest.
the point though? Like it's only unlawful order to disperse, but only if you're on the right.
Oh no, they arrested a leftist too.
Yeah, but they don't. But they don't. They arrest one, but they don't like. But they don't make them disperse. Like arrest them all.
I
Like then
mean,
there wouldn't be anybody down there.
all disrupting traffic, that would be good. Okay, yeah, it was disorderly conduct in the second degree. That's what they were both arrested for. But I think you're getting to it though, is that there is a lot of disorderly conduct. The whole thing filling up a street, they should have all been, charged with that. And my my big takeaway from the night was I wasn't expecting to go, yeah, let's just send in the troops. But after being there, I'm thinking, yeah, absolutely. The state and the city could absolutely take care of this, but they aren't. So
Yep.
my message to President Trump is go for it. They're interfering with lawful government activity. They're getting in the way of ambulances. They're making it difficult to commute right next to a federal highway. Like, why let this go on?
Well, and that's exactly right. And the biggest problem, though, is that we have a handful of judges who, they believe that they are George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, and they are there to defend the founding fathers and the Constitution that they wrote, and their goal of making sure that Portland is the most lawless city on the West Coast as much as possible. Right, that was obviously their goal, and so there's one judge, the Portland federal district judge, basically has ruled. So they had to rule twice. I think Rayfield got in front of them Friday and was able to enjoin or have the judge issue an order to prevent Trump from deploying the Oregon National Guard to Portland or I'm assuming it covered Portland or any other location in Oregon. Then, and I love this so much, Trump called the California and Texas National Guards, and the governor's press release was hilarious. We didn't get any notifications. Well, you're not required to be notified. He would have
Yeah.
notified the governors of Texas and California, which they did. And Gavin Newsom was immediately on Twitter being like, blah, 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 we're going to sue, blah, blah, blah. And then I guess they had a phone hearing on that because obviously judges don't like getting overruled, in any situation. And so Trump found a loophole. And so he says, well, I'm going to prevent him from deploying any National Guard. Now, there's been Supreme Court rulings that have really limited the power of this. So normally a district judge could issue that order and it would just apply to the entire country. And then the Supreme Court really ratcheted that down and said, no, you guys, you can't have district court judges making law for the entire country. So now it only applies to that district. So if there were other cities, if it was like Chicago and he was having the same problem in that district, he could send Oregon National Guard to Chicago, right? But he can't send any National Guard. First they were saying California, and then the judge heard about the Texas order and included all of them. So right now, he's prohibited from sending any of the 50 states National Guard or DC to Portland. And so, I mean, we'll see what the impact of that is, right? Do they go back to their cautious political policing ways? Is there more negativity, more bad events that happen from that, or does it just continue to be the same? And I think ultimately, not having gone to Portland and sort of, Alex, I'm understanding that what you're bringing forward and appreciate it very much. I would say you got to have law and order. And one, I don't think deployment of the National Guard on American citizens. Well, here's the biggest problem. Both sides of the political spectrum think some version of violence is okay. There's a lot less of it on the right that I observe than on the left. I'm seeing a lot more violence being pushed by the left lately. But there's fringes here that both think some violence is okay in certain circumstances. And I'm just a traditional law and order guy. I do not think that violence is okay. You can protest and hold signs, but the minute that you impede other people's ability to have life, you've infringed on their rights and you have to be stopped. This guy who's trying to, needs life-saving health care. I thought that's what Democrats were all about, was life-saving health care, but they will not. That's literally why they've shut down the government, supposedly, is life-saving health care. But they won't allow it to happen in this particular instance because they're too worried about how the upsetting the protesters and growing the protests. Well, the National Guard has been deployed when there has been uprisings like that in the history of our country, right? They deployed the National Guard because of integration. They've deployed the National Guard for all kinds of natural disasters, right? This happens when there is an overwhelm in order. And now I think the thing that the locals are objecting to is, no, we are managing it how we want to manage it. Well, you have made the federal government so big and powerful that they actually have influence here now. If you want a smaller federal government, let's go talk about making the federal government smaller, but it's not a small government right now. I think a lot of Democrats are secretly inside saying maybe I should be more small government, but they're afraid to say it because then they're going to get smacked for believing that the government should be small, because they still believe in big government, but they can't make that square with, oops, the person I don't like is in control of the big government.
Yeah, they just don't like Trump. It's TDS. It always is, I mean, that Trump derangement syndrome just really gets them wound up because they just don't want Trump in charge. Like, if it was a Democrat president and things were out of control, they would want help from the National Guard. I guarantee it. But for them, 1,000 murders a year is fine in the city of Portland. We're okay with that. Graffiti everywhere. People are just, they're expressing themselves. Homelessness everywhere. It's just like they're okay with trash. Like, that's the part that really is odd to me. Like, you're okay with your city that used to be the city of roses is now the city of shit. And you're okay with that. That's Roaches. The part that I have a problem with. There's a weird mentality. Like, you're just okay with it. And just because it's not quite all right downtown and you kind of shove people around the edges in the corners, it doesn't mean that there's more homeless there now than there was 5 years ago. So you just don't see them underneath the bridges, right, and stuff. They've kind of shoved them down into the corners, but they're all still around. That Kevin Dahlgren guy on Twitter or X, whatever, he's always showing you stuff of, just these open air drug dens. And I mean, that's all homelessness stuff is. It's just basically an excuse to be a druggie. And it's just disgusting.
Yeah.
Anything else on this topic before we move on to another great topic? No, I understand your feelings.
I think the other thing that kind of irked me seeing, I remember it was I think it might have been the police chief talking about it, and I read it in an OPB article or something, was saying, people are showing pictures and footage from 2020 and 2021 to make it look like there's all these camps and everything around the protests, and that's not happening. No, there is a large camp just across the train tracks from ICE, and it's about 50 feet from the building, maybe. They have several tent canopies set up. They've got tons of food supplies. They had barbecue grills. They had coolers full of food. They had people coming and distributing foods to the protests. It's not like something from 3 years ago, but 2021, there were a lot more of these all over the place. But there is an encampment right next to the ICE building of people who are there to set up base camp for protesting. And it's just false. You can go look at it in the video yourself and see these people, see the encampment. It's real. Sorry.
I got a question for you guys, both of you. How does it end? How does this, at this point, I mean, they're going to appeal the Ninth Circuit, right? So they appealed the judge's decision. How does this end? Because that's me. I'm just trying to think, how do we get out of this?
Well, I think the National Guard could very be effectively deployed to build a cordon area around the ICE facility that keeps the area peaceful, makes it safe for commuters and ambulances. Once Trump finally gets a go-ahead from a constitutional conservative on the bench, I think that's going to be the end of any impediments The National Guard is going to show up. They're going to make the community safe, and the protesters are going to find something else to do, ideally.
I think that the Supreme Court will have to weigh in ultimately because I think the Ninth is liberal enough that they probably still won't be interested in this. They'll probably uphold the district court's ruling, and then the Trump administration will appeal to the Supreme Court, and then we'll see what happens. I think ultimately this can end in disaster, right? Because as we get closer, the biggest problem is that these things will this protesting and all this will continue to ratchet up as we get closer to the elections because Trump and his administration are not going to stop enforcing immigration laws, and they're not going to stop enforcing them the way that they have. And so if the protesting, and it's likely going to get more and more pronounced as we get closer to the midterm elections, we're going to continue to see protests. They're going to continue to get worse. It's going to continue to bother Portlanders, and as a response to Trump, they're going to continue to, because they're so vocally anti-Trump, they're going to continue to tie the hands of the local elected officials. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I look at the videos up there, and I see a lot of stuff up there on Twitter about Bob Dave running a DEI consulting business. I don't know anything about that. I mean, it could be the reason. Maybe he does ideologically believe, but it's also, I mean, I look at those press conferences and I see a cop that isn't really allowed to enforce the law and has to work off of talking points that don't sound like law enforcement talking points. So he may be just as held hostage by the politics of his city as anybody else, ultimately. So I think, unfortunately, politics is getting in front of traditional law enforcement, and that if the Democrats are going to argue that Trump's DOJ, that Trump's ICE, that Trump's FBI is acting in a partisan way, then they need to show that their law enforcement isn't going to act in a partisan way. But right now, they're forcing their law enforcement, state and local, to act in a very partisan way, to not uphold safety for all people. They get a pass because of their ideology. I guarantee you, if it was Republicans, which we don't, we're not going to go protest a DEQ facility or whatever, right? Which is what we should protest, this DEQ transmission facilities and all that stuff. First of all, it would not be as rambunctious as it is, right? Democrats always go, oh, but do you remember January 6th? And I was like, so you've got one, and we've got years worth of Portland riots. Yeah. So, but anyway, so you have the situation where you just wouldn't have the same kind of issue. You have more respect for law enforcement, not total respect, but you have more respect for law enforcement on that side. And so I just don't think you would see the same type of issues at a DEQ or I don't know, who else do you want to protest? OHA, a lot of bad Oregon agency. ODOT, we'd be protesting ODOT right now. So anyway, I think that's kind of, unfortunately, it's not going to end. It's going to continue to be politics until either leadership in Oregon changes or Trump, isn't the president anymore, I think, and the Democrats win back the White House. I think that's basically it. It doesn't change for years.
Yeah, it's going to be an oddity. I'm just afraid that an accident turns into a flashpoint, and that's what I hope. Yeah. That's what I hope doesn't happen, because I'm afraid of that scenario, because that can then make things go in a really downward spiral, which could, and whether it's here or Chicago or, that's, and I do feel I'm glad that Trump is, in my mind, President Trump is coming in and trying to clean up cities, because I think he's right. Cities have been given a pass for so long to become just these left-wing, dumpster fires. And they've just been given a pass for way too long. And so I'm glad that he's going in and saying, hey, I'm going to DC tomorrow. I'll get on a plane. I'm excited to go check out DC, with all the things. So that's happened since then. Of course, nothing's going to be open because it's all shut down because of the federal government. But so much for my Library of Congress special tour that I was going to get and everything. So bummer me, but I'm excited to see DC. Maybe I'll venture outside of just the lawn of the Washington Monument lawn and stuff and the White House. But I'm glad that he's going after it. I think it's important conversation to have politically, like what is acceptable amount of crime, graffiti, homelessness. I think at some point we're going to have to grapple with those discussions. And then the voters are going to ultimately have to hold Democrats accountable for just the decades of failure within that city at some point. And when we're seeing, right, unemployment rate just going down, nobody wants to operate a business in downtown Portland or the areas. So that's the only way, really, until there's consequences, nobody's ever going to change their behavior. So there has to be something that has to happen to change the consequences. So we'll see.
America was built on the idea that anything is possible with hard work and a dream. But it doesn't seem to feel like that today in Oregon. Democrats' out-of-touch far-left agenda has only made things worse. Paying union workers to strike against us, stealing private property rights away, driving companies out of Oregon, and sending your taxes higher so you can't afford to live here. From gas tax, open-air drug markets, and homelessness, Democrats have failed. Democrats passed an additional gas tax on you. Every day, Oregonians will now pay over $4 billion more to failed Democrat agendas. It's time to push back, stand up, and say enough. Senate Republican leader Bruce Starr is leading the charge to refer this horrible gas tax to you, the voters. Republicans think you should have a vote. Write this website down, notaxoregon.com. Get involved and stay ready. Governor Kotek and Democrats will do their best to make sure your voice does not count. Together, we can win and restore much-needed balance in Oregon against unchecked left-wing ideology of Portland Democrats the rest of us don't share.
The Second Amendment, the amendment that makes freedom of speech possible, shall not infringe, are etched in who we are as Americans. Well, in Oregon, Democrats want to take your guns by eroding every possible right you may have to bear arms. We have seen it time and time again. Oregon Gun Rights is on the front lines of policy making, developing a proactive agenda to protect your right to bear arms. Unlike failed organizations that just blame Republicans and take your money to pay their own salaries, Oregon Gun Rights takes no donations from hard-working Oregonians. The organization is supported by private donors who want real change in Oregon, not blame Republican politics of bad actors. 2026 is the year we can make a difference. All you have to do is enter your email at OregonGunRights.org. Let's develop a positive agenda for gun owners. Let's train our kids about safety and responsibility. Let's win Oregon in 2026. Instead of blame, let's get involved. OregonGunRights.org.
So, Alex, I want to transition to another but similar topic, I think, because I think that part of the problem and part of the philosophy here that comes from certain types of city government really emanates from the kind of groupthink that develops in these cities. So I'm looking here at a page. So you attended, I think, the 100th annual League of Oregon Cities Conference. So 1925 to 2025, their 100th annual conference. And I would just love to see the agenda from those first conferences and see what are the issues that cities are dealing with that are exactly the same and what are the issues that are different. But I'm just looking at this agenda and I'm going, okay, let's look at civility, ideology, and politics, which, by the way, was not included in registration. You had to pay an extra $100. Who knows why? With a speaker from the Association of Idaho Cities, right? So I thought we didn't want to be like Idaho because they're too conservative, but apparently they did find a speaker that they want. I love that. I love that PERS for Dummies is a course. That's great. PERS is really huge for local governments. Obviously, there's people of color in city government breakout sessions, the People of Color Caucus, all kinds of Oregon sanctuary law, legal landscape, and city responsibilities, which I think would be interesting. But also, again, the ideological viewpoint of cities is that, well, we have to not coordinate with the federal government because of state law and all that jazz. And then there was a really good one that you pointed out, which was an event with, well, it was supposed to be Governor Kate Brown, but I don't think that she ended up being able to attend. But it's former Governor Barbara Roberts, former Governor Kate Brown, and I think she was replaced by State Treasurer Steiner, and then former Oregon Senator Betsy Johnson, who, of course, named the previous topic the city of Roaches, Portland City of Roses.
Oh, I
So
should have
tell me
used that
about
when we were talking
what
about it.
we can make it the title of the episode, Brian.
There you go.
Um,
I like that.
so what did you, Alex, observe about the different topics and the different breakout sessions? I mean, I have a few notes from you that I can bring up, but what were kind of the big interesting points that you heard at the conference?
Well, I didn't end up making it to most of it. Unfortunately, I was out sick a lot of last week, so I only got there on Saturday morning. So I was there for the final keynotes for the panel with the governor. I've been to a few of these conferences before, so a lot of these aren't really new for me. The ideological bent is very clear in a lot of it. What I was told by somebody who attended the immigrant or the sanctuary city one, whoever was facilitating that said, "Hey, the Trump administration called LOC earlier this week and said you better not hold that," which that'd be interesting to hear who exactly it was and what the threats were. Like, LOC doesn't get federal funding. What are you going to do? Say, hey, please don't hold a legal workshop to talk about sanctuary city policies. That was interesting. Another one I heard was from a mayor who was saying that Trump is going after black mayors in the United States. And I tried pushing him for, like, what on earth does it mean that Trump is going after black mayors? And finally I said, is he withholding federal funding if your mayor is black? And he said, yeah, that's what's happening. And yeah, yeah, that was a little confusing.
Are they
Uh,
trying to withhold federal funds from Oregon and Portland? Have you guys heard about that?
um, I've
Because
heard,
I think the mayor of Portland is white. I think the governor of Oregon is white. I think the Secretary of State of Oregon is white. I think our AG is white. I think both the Speaker of the House and the Senate President are white. Wow, that's a lot of white people in leadership there here in Oregon. I don't know. That's kind of Democrats' thing to sort out. I don't really have anything specific on that front. But anyway, continue.
yeah, well, the second place candidate in the Democratic primary for Secretary of State was black, so that's probably it. It's kind of, guilty by association. I don't know. I had a hard time believing it because when I like pushed for details, it was kind of like, well, he's just going after us, and I had to offer something like, I just kind of find that spurious, Mr. Mayor. If you have some better documentation, I'd love to hear it, but that's a new one for me that I haven't heard from anyone else. Um,
It stems from the Chicago mayor, I think, because Trump was kind of hammering him pretty hard. He's
yeah,
black, and I think people just they want to fit that narrative, and it's just dumb.
That mayor is historically unpopular in Chicago. He has like a 25% approval rating. So
Dude's an
I
idiot.
think right. And I think the point that this mayor actually was pointing out without realizing it is you have more mayors of color typically elected in larger cities, but those cities also tend to be the cities that oppose coordinating with the federal government and have sanctuary policies.
yeah,
Ergo, he's quote unquote targeting people of color, which he's not. He's targeting a certain sect of policies. And here on the West Coast, where we don't try to elect people of color to offices, we just talk about it. There aren't any. It's the same policies. Same things being applied. They just defunded a whole bunch of DEQ funding, right? Leah Felden is the head of DEQ, and the governor, again, we talked about, not people of color as far as I'm aware.
yeah. What was one of so Tobias Reed was there, Secretary of State, and he gave a speech. He was at the Oregon Association of Municipal Recorders the week before where I was at, and at the city recorders one, he was very policy focused. Didn't make a whole lot of value statements. He was just talking about elections and great to have you all as partners in elections. Thank you very much. He was a lot more openly partisan at the LOC when he was talking. Um, and my favorite part of all was when he was calling out Ben Edel. He didn't say by name, but if we know the notorious former manager of the Umpqua Transit District, Tobias was going off about certain special district leaders who were filing spurious lawsuits in courts to try and overturn elections that he guarantees you are safe and secure. Um, I didn't expect Ben Edel to rise to that level, that his actions would be called out at the League of Oregon Cities. But here we are, Ben. Now everybody in Oregon has heard of you.
And that's what he wants. Guess
Yes.
that
And you
works.
also mentioned that Tobias Reed talked a little bit about campaign finance reform, and I had happened to
Oh,
run into some of his staff in the building. They're having some meetings on campaign finance reform. They were asking for some changes. So what's the reason? Did he explain the reasoning on some of those changes and what the issue is?
yeah, he wasn't as specific as I would have liked, but basically he was saying there are way too many requirements in this bill for the Secretary of State's office to actually be able to implement, not with our level of funding, not with our level of staffing, and simply due to the complexities of what's demanded in campaign finance reform. He said there's a lot of meetings and a lot of people talking about it, but the number one thing he would like anybody at all to do is call their legislature and say, please fix the campaign finance reform. It's not good for Oregon.
Yeah,
So,
because our campaign finance is fine. It's open. It's you can see whoever gives to anybody. We have reporting requirements. I mean, this idea that they want to ratchet it down, that only you can, you can't go into the next session with only $10,000. How do you even police that? Like you can't
yeah.
even police that. Like and so I get Tobias's argument on that, and I agree with him on it. I said it to him. I saw him in the Capitol last week as well. I actually chatted with him there at the Republican office for a half minute. We were sitting there talking. We were mostly when I usually talk to him, I usually just remind him of how I owned him in the basketball game when we played against him. But but I said that about campaign finance, and I said, please do what you can to just. This is a dumb rule. Even this whole like if you're an incumbent, you got to file a week before.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I get why they're doing it, but it's silliness. Like we don't have a problem. They're trying to fix problems that don't exist.
Yeah, that's one of the things that bugs me most of all. So, when it comes down to the way cities do their elections, normally you get about 3 months to gather signatures across state lines, but the statute says you get about 3 months to do it unless your city charter says otherwise. And Elgin is one of those cities where the city charter says otherwise. They give a constraint for how long you have to collect signatures, and it works out to 2.5 weeks to collect all the signatures you need to get on the ballot. So if I'm now an incumbent because I was appointed to fill the position, I have 7 days before I only have a week and a half to get enough
Wow.
signatures. Just being new to town, I have to hope I have that. I probably will be able to get them, but still, this is saying, hey, because your city charter sucks, it now sucks even worse for you. Good luck getting enough people on the ballot to fill out your city council and all your elected positions.
Well, that's classic Oregon, caring very little or to none about what Eastern Oregon and their problems are, which are sometimes different than Portland problems. So, I also think what's super interesting about the campaign finance discussion is, and I've always argued this, is that when you make laws, ideally you do it through the legislative process. So when you're negotiating a settlement in a court case that includes changes to the law, which frankly I think should be not constitutional, I don't think DOJ should be able to say we're not going to follow this law, or we're going to make this change, or we're not going to prosecute this, or we're going to do that. I don't even think they should be allowed to do that, because that is a legislative function.
Yeah.
Similarly, it's interesting, and I think you just get really bad law when you have a hostage situation, which is what that was. The campaign finance folks had collected enough signatures with dark money to be able to, which is ironic because, of course, they want transparency, but they won't tell you who their donors are and where they got all their money. But that's politics, hypocrisy. So they had a really bad ballot measure that would let everybody raise like $250 per person, and so total election spending would drop to like below $1 million probably in the entire state. Nobody would know who any of the candidates are, because the only thing you could afford to do is maybe pay for a phone number and then just dial out to as many voters as you can afford to dial out to. Beep boop beep. Because you can't pay for any technology or any mailing or any TV or anything like that, right? And so they brought that they were going to bring it to the ballot, and they entered into instead a hostage negotiation with the legislature. And so we had to negotiate with somebody who had a gun to the political system and was ready to blow it up and didn't care what the consequences are, didn't care about voters being able to know who their candidates are, didn't care about free speech, frankly, which I think is, again, fascinating. all of these things, right? And so we have now, shockingly, from that very bad process, a very bad law as a result. And I appreciate the Secretary of State for pointing that out. And he's pointing it out, it sounds like, in the legislature to the folks that he's meeting with. And I think he's going to hopefully point it out in the short session. His staff said that hopefully that there's going to be something brought forward in the short session to fix these problems. I mean, obviously, if we are going to implement campaign finance, it makes sense to give them additional dollars to do that. You shouldn't have to build a whole new system and do a whole new regulatory thing without some kind of financing. But if we can also simplify it at the same time and make it make more sense, we can also make it cost less. So I would like the online system to be easier to use. Having more than one tab open in Orstar would be awesome. And obviously it's a very old system, so it'd be nice to update that part of it. I think that's all really good. But just like you're saying, Brian, very transparent. 7-day reporting. If Phil Knight gives $1 million, it's on the front page and it's on Orstar. So what else do you need?
That's the biggest thing we can do with campaign finance is put spotlights on it. So I think more transparency is the bet. That's the only way to really. And then if people don't want to vote for Republicans because Phil Knight gave $1 million, right? Then they don't. That's their choice. They don't have a. But when he's going to give $1 million. The difference is does it go to a C4 now that then gives to another C4 that then backwoods that's into a different C4, and then they spread it between 17 different people into PACs that then go carry a message that they were going to do in the first place. So because you can't, the Supreme Court has said money is speech. So the reality is that now the states can limit that, right? What you're given to a specific PAC. But the reality is Phil Knight could, just go give it to a dark money PAC, and then they would just do, like you see those ads with Lori Chavez Dreamer and Janelle Bynum, right? That they both suck. Name the issue, doesn't matter. But it's paid for by people who hate the other person, basically. And then you try to trace that money. You can't trace that money to know that it came from George Soros or Phil Knight or whoever. Whereas in our system, you can still give to the candidate. Like, I think you want a system where somebody says, I want to give candidate A $1 million or 50 grand. I mean, reality is we're talking about one person, but let's say the vast is, say, if there's a $25,000 or a $50,000 check, and if it's from somebody in that district that wants to affect the outcome of that race and it's transparent, I think people kind of want to know that. And if it's not transparent, then you'll never know who's actually funding this person's race. How many Portland City Council races? Remember, like the consultants were leaving the races in September to go run the PAC that was going to be supporting their candidate because they went to go work for the PAC because they could make more. I mean, it's stupid. So I don't know. That's my rant on it.
Well,
we got off on the LOC stuff on the campaign finance reform. Like that was kind of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, just to bring that back around, anything else, because I know we're running up against maybe potential time limit. So anything else at the League of Organs? I mean, what is the vibe? Is the vibe that we have a bunch of different cities with a bunch of different viewpoints and a bunch of, different spectrum across politics? Or is it all, well, we're not, how many cities are in Oregon? I don't even know. 200 cities. We're all one city.
260?
We all believe one thing.
Yeah. That was an interesting bit. So I want to say the League of Oregon City staff themselves do a really, really great job, and I believe that they act in a very nonpartisan manner. A lot of the actual policy decision making does come from cities. That's one great thing about LOC, at the very least, is that city leaders, city councilors, mayors, and city managers are driving a lot of the decisions when it comes to policy there. It's the ones that really get involved and actually try to step in to make decisions, though, tend to be on the much more left-leaning side. And as a result, LOC pushes a lot of really left-leaning policies. And there's not a lot of research done towards how it's going to affect other cities. Like one of the things that bugged me, I got an email from LOC when the special session was announced. Please go call Senator Todd Nash, who represents Elgin, and tell him we need you to support this transportation package in the special session. And one of the reasons that they said you need to communicate this to Senator Nash is we need to not just keep the payroll tax, but double it to support rural transit. And I said, we don't have transit in Elgin. That money taken out of our paychecks doesn't actually go to transit. And now you're asking us for even less take-home pay to still not have transit. Why would we do that? Um, but that's the policy angle that's driven by liberal city councilors and liberal mayors who end up taking over all the policy committees is to go, yeah, transit's great. We need more of it. And I actually like transit, but that's the reason I want there to be transit. I don't want money taken out of my paycheck to pay for buses in Portland. If you could put a bus in Elgin, that'd be great. But that it's just grating. And there are other things that they just simply allow people to ignore. They had a great panel with an all-star cast of Oregon's Democratic women. Former Governor Barbara Roberts was there. Elizabeth Steiner giving her guest Kate Brown impression. No, it was in fact Senator Steiner or Treasurer Steiner who showed up in place of Kate Brown. They didn't say why she wasn't going to be there, but the other one, of course, was Betsy Johnson, and they were all talking about things were better back in the day, and also all the other things. Barbara Roberts gave this great speech about how, when I was governor, I was forced to preside over the collapse of the timber industry. And, I made a lot of hard calls, but they ended up being the right calls because I was just driving through a small town the other day and they had a mill. So everything's fine.
It's great. That was the last mill, but it's still there.
Nothing to see here.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the mill in Elgin has taken a lot of hits over the time. I just had to issue a demolition permit for a big chunk of the mill that's just going to be destroyed and never rebuilt because in the timber regime that Barbara Roberts bragged about building, you're not ever going to make that profitable again. So
listen, they've created more timber than ever before. It's just that they won't cut any of it.
There you go. That's exactly
our supply is really strong. We just can't get to it.
We just can't find the demand. No one needs to build anything. Oh, because we outlawed building houses. That was another one that you mentioned that I thought somebody was talking about how all opposition to multifamily, if you oppose any multifamily, anywhere, anytime, any build, for any reason, that's racism.
Yeah, she openly said that. It's racist and classist. My sister and Tom McCall, the American dream is not to own half a duplex. It's to own your own home with a white picket fence in whatever town you choose. Sorry.
Well, and that's my favorite thing is the people who call out racist policy often also call out their racist biases, such as, well, people of color live in apartments because they're not allowed to own homes because we won't let them because we want to make sure housing is as expensive as possible.
Yeah.
So it's racist to not have multifamily and build more single family homes so people
No, you have to build multifamily because people of color have nowhere to live. It's just the craziest stuff. They don't think about what are they implying and what's the logic to how I got there. It's just thing happens, it's racist.
Yeah.
That's the entire extent of the thought process there.
Tells you why the League of Oregon Cities will do everything they can to not build houses. Because all we ever had to do in the long session was fight them on housing policy. Like literally, they were the worst. I mean, the worst. The city planners all went to the same university. The university is suck, and they just they all think the same. It's crazy to me, and they all want control over every aspect of housing. They want to tell you how much trees you have in your backyard, how much shade requirements. They want the color, the eave overhangs, and when we ran Senate Bill 974 right over the top of League of Oregon Cities and destroyed them, they were pretty pissed. There was a bunch of planners, mostly urban planners, that were really upset about that. I'm sure the Elgin City Council didn't have any problems with it, and I bet if they get a building permit, you guys probably all high five and jump up and down, and then you're like, what can we do to serve you, right? Exactly. To make that happen. And there's got to be that mentality, not the other mentality is how can we impede you and be a bigger roadblock and tell you more what to do versus how can we just serve you as a city official? And I think that's always the problem with the league and that city stuff that has just grown into this idea that you're not actually there to serve the citizens of your city. I feel like they almost think the citizens are there to serve their will. And it's really changed that paradigm. And I think we need to get back to where the citizens are the ones controlling the paradigm.
The key here, Brian, is to break up the monopoly. If the League of Oregon Cities wasn't a self-imposed monopoly organization, then they would have multiple organizations: the League of Oregon Small Cities, the League of Oregon Medium Cities, the League of Oregon Cities with Crazy City Councils, and then the Urban League of Portland. And the or the
Rural cities,
I guess that is a
Rural
group.
City Coalition.
Yeah, the Rural City Coalition, the medium-sized city in a blue county. Anyway, there could be there's lots of different viewpoints based on the size you are, based on the politics, based on your region, and they're just like, well, no, we have very clearly you can oppose or support a bill for all cities, and they all have one thought, and I think that's the biggest problem. Is it's like, that doesn't make sense to have one organization speak for all cities when all are different, right? I think you have a lot less variance in counties, but you still have that same situation where the Eastern Oregon counties have a group and they speak up whenever it's an Eastern Oregon related specific thing, or they have a disagreement with AOC, and that seems to be a more functional relationship and discussion. AOC seems a lot more balanced politically as well, and so I think a bunch of the small to medium-sized cities should all leave or League of Oregon Cities and create some real competition, so that there isn't just one group out there that says all kinds of dumb stuff on behalf of everybody and claiming the support when they probably don't have the support of all of their cities on everything that they talk about. Just like the School Boards Association.
You're not gonna believe this, but there actually is one that was formed. I co-founded it a couple years ago, called the Small Municipalities Advocacy Coalition. It was mostly cities in Lynn County, but we all got together. SMAC, yeah.
That's a good acronym.
SMAC.
Got to smack these guys around a little bit.
You need an acronym because that's a mouthful, Alex.
Yeah. We were talking about what could we do with it over time. We're like, well, the biggest benefit LOC gives is that you have to be with them in order to join the City County Insurance Services, which is a risk pool that does insurance for all the cities and counties in Oregon. Like, well, maybe we start our own risk pool. Like, if you really don't like LOC, but you don't want to have the insurance go away, start our own insurance consortium.
Yeah.
It's not outside the realm of possibility. I mean, I love CIS and they do really, really good work. So I myself would be a little hesitant to leave that. But there are alternatives. There are also regional intergovernmental councils across the state. We call them COGs. Eastern Oregon doesn't have one. There's one in Bend. There's one for the Mid-Willamette Valley. There's one for Lower Willamette, Lane County.
Oregon has a missing cog. No wonder we're not functional.
Exactly. Eastern
Sorry,
Oregon,
I'm just full of dad jokes.
I know.
Yeah. So there are alternatives where you can have cities that build up more localized pools of advocacy. Whereas I tried to bring that up to the Oregon Cascade West Council of Government, which represents Lynn, Benton, and Lincoln County. And boy, there are a lot of, every city in those counties gets one vote. So it's pretty evenly divided left and right. And what I was told that they just about killed each other having that discussion was like, oh, we don't want that. So I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility for the League of Oregon Cities policies to become more conservative. It's just, if you're a city councilor who's at all concerned about the status quo, call up your city manager or your mayor and say, hey, next time there's a call for policy committee members, I want that. I want to be on that. And you could get all of these committees to actually start changing and coming up with good ideas. One person who's recognizing all of this can't do it alone. I tried to get on last year, and I was put on it was like digital and telecommunications policy committee, which was not really all that interesting. I brought up one topic at the beginning, which was ways cities can take advantage of next gen television tech to make their communities better. And they said, well, that's interesting. I never talked about it again for the next 6 months. And they came up with a list of stupid things, including their own DEI, digital equity and inclusion. And none of their policy proposals made it onto the agenda because it was all worthless.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems there with LOC, but we also help some of the cities. I mean, we ran a bill that wasn't very liked by some of the Republicans, right, with the water and sewer rates and stuff, and trying to figure out, where there was too strict of a charter that you would never pass anything to raise your water rates, right? I mean, they were stuck in the dark ages with their water rates while their sewers are basically crumbling. So there's some things where they need the legislature to basically be the bad guys. And I think that's that's the good symbiotic relationship you should have with cities and counties and the state, where you can work together to basically fix problems. But it seems like sometimes LOC would rather just play politics than fix problems. And that's therein lies, that's the problem with government across the board, to be honest with you. So
Yeah, and again, the staff themselves are very, very nonpartisan and very non-ideological in the work they do. It's the cities that
man.
have them. I've never had any problems with the staff themselves. I see a lot of work done to take directions directly from the elected officials that run the show, rather than having staff tell everybody, "Okay, I'm liberal and you're all going to be liberal like me." It's liberal city councilors like, "Aha, I can make LSC get this liberal thing done." They get on the committees with all their friends, and LSC is like, "Well, that's the rule. We're going to do what they say."
Yeah. Well, if they didn't have actually, it'd be easier, Reagan, if we just got rid of the city of Portland out of LOC.
I mean, they should be, and they do their own
Better.
lobbying anyway. They're one
Yeah.
of the groups that spends the most on lobbying in the entire state.
Like the most, I think. Yeah. Crazy. All right. Well, yes, I'm late for we all got to give up our lunch hour, and so I've got to get on another call. So thanks, Alex. This was great. I think we need to do this some more. Hey, go attend some more stuff and bring back some different stories.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna go find somebody to run against you so I can run their campaign, take you out.
To give him more time to podcast with it. Anyway, visit rightnoworegon.com to see some of Alex's journalism. That's mostly that'll help you keep track of everything he's doing and interested in. Are you on Twitter?
I am. Yeah. Orange KNOW. That's my handle.
Orange KNOW. All right. Appreciate it, Alex. Thanks for coming on.
All right, thank you. Talk to you later.
Thank you.